Right, good evening everyone. Tonight we're here, I'm Liz Shanahan, and we're here at this training to learn how to cook chicken and sweet corn soup. And at the end of this training you'll be able to do it. Just a few housekeeping. Please ensure that your mobile phone is turned off or is on silent. This training will go for approximately 30 minutes. We have a few safety items. Fire evacuation procedure is through the doorway on your right, out to the front door and down to evacuation point A, which is the letterbox at the front of the premises. So please follow any instructions that I give you, as I am the fire warden. Toilets are through the doorway on your right, and hand washing facilities are next door to the toilets. Please be aware that we are cooking tonight and the hot plate will be on, and also the pot will be hot as well. And we're also using sharp knives to cut up the vegetables, so please be aware that they are extremely sharp and take care when we're using them. If there's any spills which may cause a slip in the kitchen area, they will be attended to immediately and cleaned up as per 123 Education and Care's policy. At the end of the session, if you could please fill in the feedback forms and give them to me before you leave this session. Now, the agenda for tonight will be that we will read the recipe through, and then after that we will proceed to actually cook the chicken and sweet corn soup. If you have any questions through the training session, please feel free to ask them and I'll be able to answer them as we go. So are we ready to cook?
Yes.
Okay. So the recipe, the ingredients are 1 large onion, 2 carrots, which 3 small ones would be approximately 2 carrots, 2 sticks of celery, so you could use 4 small pieces, would be equivalent to 2 sticks of celery, 30 grams of unsalted butter, 1.5 cups of milk and 1.5 cups of water, 1 can of cream corn, doesn't matter which brand that you get, they're all quite as good as one another, half a barbecue chicken, or you could possibly use 2 chicken breasts which have been poached, that's equivalent of half a barbecue chicken, 2 tablespoons of plain flour, and salt and pepper to taste. So we then chop the vegetables into bite-sized pieces, melt the butter, saute the onion, celery, carrot in the butter, add the flour, combine the milk and the water, add to the vegetables, stirring, then the cream corn, then the chicken, season to taste, and then let it simmer for approximately 10 minutes. I would keep stirring it at a regular interval so that it doesn't catch on the bottom of your pot. So we will begin. So the first point of call whenever you're cooking is to wash your hands. So I will do that now. Using your elbow to turn the tap off and wiping your hands with paper towel in a patting motion. Using the paper towel to open the garbage and to pop it in so that your hands are clean for when you start. So we will start with the onion and we'll start chopping that up. It is best to chop all your vegetables to begin with so that you have them all ready to go when you start the cooking procedure. So I'll just skin the onion. It's also good to have your wet tea towel underneath your chopping board so that it will stop it from moving around, and then you won't have any slips or you could injure yourself. So we'll just chop the onion.
Does it matter how big the slices are, the pieces of the veggies?
No, this is really a very rustic recipe, and you can chop the onion, all the vegetables, to whatever size suits your taste. That can be finely diced if you wish, or you can have them a bit chunkier. It just depends on what you like your soup to be. So okay. I myself like my soup to be a little bit chunky, as this recipe is more like a chowder than it is actually a soup. Yeah. So I'll just chop the onion. Bring it to one side. Okay. Now for the celery. It's best just to top and tail them. Turn them around, tail the ends of them, put them aside, and again just chop them to whatever size that you want. This is the part that takes the most time, apart from the actual simmering of the dish at the end of the cooking process. So chopping up all your vegetables and all that to start with, before you actually start cooking, helps to have a more even cooking temperature right throughout the cooking stage. And now for the carrots. Now with the carrots,
you peel them, or?
Yes, you peel them. I have washed all these vegetables before we started. You can peel them if you want. I normally don't, because there's lots of nutrients underneath the skin. So as I've washed them before, I'll just top and tail them and then dice them up to whatever consistency I want. But again, it's your preference what you would like to do. When you're cooking as you are cooking for very young children, my advice would be probably to dice them quite finely, because then there will be some children who will balk at eating vegetables in their soup. So yeah, the finer they are, the better they would be for the children. as you can, if you'd like to come over and have a look, as you can see, they're very rustic. They're, as I said, I like mine to be chopped a little bit bigger than finely diced, as it is a very rustic soup. Okay, so at this stage I'll get rid of all the rubbish into the bin. It is best to clean your working area as you go. And after that, again, I'll wash my hands too, as well. Right, and now it's time to cook. First, placing your pot onto a medium heat and let it warm up. Getting our butter.
How much butter are we using?
The recipe calls for 30 grams of unsalted butter. But you can use margarine, especially if you have a child in your childcare centre who is lactose intolerant. There are a number of lactose-free margarines, so you would use that, as well as there are a number of lactose-free milk. So you could substitute that for the butter and the milk that I'm using tonight.
Could you substitute the milk with cream?
No.
Can't.
No, because the cream would split.
Oh.
And it would curdle, so no,
okay.
you substitute, you'd have to use the milk and half the water. The original recipe called for 3 cups of milk, but over the many years as which I have made this, it made it too thick, so I've reduced it down to 1.5 cups of water and 1.5 cups of milk, and that gives it a really good consistency.
Okay.
Yeah. So 30 grams of butter would be about that much. And we'll put it in our pot and we'll let it melt away. Put that away in our fridge. So while that's melting away, we'll get our wooden spoon. So at this stage it will melt, and then we add the vegetables all at once. Just taking a little bit of time there to melt. Spoon, stir it around a little bit so it melts a little bit quicker. It doesn't have to be, you don't want to have your heat up too high or your butter will burn and that'll go brown. It'll be that brown looking, and that will give your soup a really bitter taste. So just slowly melt your butter so that it doesn't burn. And once you start to see, if you'd like to have a look, once you start to see the bubbles, right, that's when you can add your vegetables. All at once. Right. And then they will have to cook for about 3 to 5 minutes. So just give them a bit of a stir around, coat them in all that lovely butter. Right. And let them go for about 3 to 5 minutes. You can turn the heat up just a little bit more and off they go. So once they get, you'll know when to add the next step, which is adding the flour, because your onions will go opaque, and that means they're a little bit see-through. So that's the time when you start to add your flour to the mixture. But at this stage you just need to let it go to cook for about 5 minutes or so.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Have you any questions?
How many will this serve?
This will serve four people, 4 adults. So you would have to adjust the amount of ingredients for the number of children that you have on the day at your education and care service. So you would have to work that out, how many you would be able to serve.
Okay.
Yeah. You could also use almond milk for a healthier alternative, or if you have someone that's allergic to lactose-free milk, there are people around that have that allergy, you could also substitute the almond milk in it as well. So. Right, so just keep stirring that occasionally so that they all get coated with that butter and cook evenly. We'll give them another minute or two before we start adding our flour.
How much flour are we using?
The recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of flour, and you use plain flour.
And do you put it straight in, or is it mixed up with something? Or
No, you put 1 tablespoon in first,
Yep.
And you stir that through till it's all combined, and then you put the other tablespoon in. Again, you stir it all through until it's combined, because that becomes your thickening agent. And then you have to let it cook for 1 or 2 minutes so you cook out that flour taste. You don't end up with that floury taste through your soup. So, okay. Again, we'll give our vegetables a bit of a stir. Another minute, I think, and then we can start adding our flour. Some of the onion is starting to go opaque, which means that it's see-through, but there's still a little bit there that needs to change. See, these ones here are gone opaque, but yeah, so the other ones just need another minute, and then we can start adding our flour. Alright, so with our flour, a nice heaped tablespoon will be very good. Now we'll sprinkle it over our vegetables like this. Right, that's one. And then we stir it through. And stirring it through till it's combined in the vegetables. So keep stirring it until you can't actually see any flour in the pot.
and it stays at that heat the whole way through?
Yeah, at this stage it does, yeah. Just keep an eye on the heat. If it starts to stick on the bottom of the pan, you will lower it down, but at this stage it's fine. And you just keep stirring it till it's all through. Right, and then we'll do our number 2 nice heaped tablespoon. Again, sprinkling it all over, not just in one, don't just tip it into the middle because it goes all cluggy and it puts lumps into your soup. Right, all over. And again, stir it through. Keep stirring until it's all combined. Right, like this. Alright, and then we just let that sit for a minute to just cook the flour out a little bit, because as I said, you don't want that flour taste all through your soup. So while that's cooking away for our minute, we can then get on to combining our water and our milk. As I said, the original recipe called for 3 cups of milk, but as I found that to be made your soup too thick. So over the years I've refined the recipe to 1.5 cups of milk, 1.5 cups of water. So we have our jug. Put my glasses on so I'll make sure I get the right measurement. Alright. Put the milk in. That was a good judge, wasn't it?
Perfect.
Perfect. And bringing your milk up to 3 cups. There we go, up to 3 cups. Okay. Right, letting our vegetables seems to have cooked out that flour. They seem quite good. Now, first of all, you put a little bit in just to start the mixture going. So probably about 100 mils. You can hear it sizzle. And we stir that through. And some of it will combine very well and thicken up quite straight away. As you can see, it's starting to thicken up straight away, right? And that's what it's supposed to do, right? So then you keep pouring the rest of the milk and the water in, and you give it a good stir all around. Make sure it's all around. Let it cook for a minute, and then you can go on to the next step of putting your cream corn in. So we'll just let that cook for a minute or two. You might see that it brings it to the boil, and that's okay. If it's boiling rapidly, well then you need to turn your heat down. But if it's just bubbling away, the heat's okay.
Does it need to boil though?
It needs to come to the boil, yeah. At this stage it needs to come to the boil, and in the process it will start to thicken up slightly, alright? So let that go for a minute or two till that happens, and then we'll add our cream corn. So just stirring again. Right, it's slowly coming up to the boil. As you can see, it's starting to boil now with the bubbles. So we'll let it just come up a little bit further before we put our cream corn in. And again, you stir it through and you let it cook for a minute. so that it combines really, really well. Alright, that looks good. So now we add our cream corn.
The whole tin?
Yes, the whole tin. Yeah. Yeah. And stir it through. Just gently stir it through so it combines. Gives it a really rich, creamy consistency. Right. Now, again, you let it cook for about a minute. Again, letting it come back up to the boil, not a rapid boil. And so while that's happening, we'll just clean off our working area here. Right, I'll just wash my hands again because now we're going to dice up the barbecue chicken, and as I've been cutting up vegetables, I don't want to cross-contaminate between the vegetables and the chicken, so I'll wash my hands again. Cutting them dry and using the paper towel to cover the bin and close the bin. Right, so we have our chicken. See, it's going quite well, quite bubbling away. I, at this stage, would probably turn it down a little bit now so it doesn't stick on the bottom. Just
Too low or?
Yeah, too low, yeah. So it just keeps bubbling over. But every cooktop is different. So with your kitchen cooktop at the preschool, you will know your cooktop very well and your oven very well. So you would just adjust it to whatever suits your cooker,
Yep.
your oven, and that at preschool. But yeah, so I would just turn it down a little bit, which I have. And let it go for a minute or two. And I will cut up the barbecue chicken. Again, the way you cut it up is to your own taste. You can have it, you can just pull it apart, like pulled pork or pulled chicken if you wish. You could cut it up into large chunks or you could finely dice it. Again, it's up to you. It's whatever preference suits you. Yeah, so I myself like to dice it quite fine. Probably cutting it into strips is the best way to do it. Right. Just take note that I've used a different knife again for so that there's no cross-contamination between the vegetables and the chicken, and I've also used a different board for that same reason.
Smells good.
Smells good. It's good. Okay. Oh, first of all, give your soup a stir. Yeah, I might even turn it down a little bit more because it's just starting to catch on the bottom. A really good stir before you put the chicken in. That's right. Right. Using the back of your spoon, put the chicken in. Right. Mixing it through. Now, as your chicken's already cooked, you really don't have to cook it again. It's just the simmering now would be to finish off cooking your vegetables and also to warm the chicken through. And that's why we simmer it for about 10 to 15 minutes on a very low heat. Okay. And lastly, we just then season to taste. A little bit of pepper and a good pinch of salt.
Could you add a bit of garlic if you wanted to?
If you wish, yeah. And a good pinch of salt. So this is the basic recipe. As I've said, I've adapted this recipe over the years that I've been cooking it, and you could do the same. You know, you could possibly try different vegetables. I haven't ever tried any other vegetables, but you might be able to put
Cabbage, maybe?
cabbage in it, yeah, or turnips or parsnips, any soup vegetables that you use in other soups, like not pea and ham soup, but like beef and vegetable soup or chicken soup. You could even possibly put some noodles in it for the children to make it a little bit different for them. Of course, most children like noodles. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then we just let it simmer. Now for around about 10 minutes. And as I said, keep coming back and stirring it. Lowering it down a little bit more because it's going a little bit too fast. Just and that is how you make chicken and sweet corn soup.
Thank you.
Have you any questions?
So obviously, if I need it for more people, I just times the ingredients.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Depending on how many children you're going to serve. But then again, this serves 4 adults, so children aren't as big as an adult. So you possibly could feed around about 10 children with what we've made. So then, if you've got 20 children, you would just double the recipe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all. Yeah. All right, Nick. Well, thanks very much for coming to the training session. Could you please fill out the feedback form and give them to me before you leave? And thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.